What's up, fam? It's your personal growth mentor, chief encourager, and life navigator, Rodica Cruz. And I just want to thank you for checking out another episode of Lead, Love, Thrive. I created this podcast to just educate, equip, and empower others on how to lead their thoughts and emotions and actions according to God's word so they can love God, themselves, and others on purpose and make daily decisions to thrive and live an abundant life that is full of more joy, more hope, peace, passion, power, purpose, and significance. Over the next few podcasts, I want to invite you into some very private conversations I'm having with my friend, Monique. Monique is a 39-year-old single woman who longs to be married and live a life full of meaning, purpose, and significance. You're going to hear her struggle with her singleness and desire to be unapologetically loved, celebrated, and accepted. We recently had a heart-to-heart conversation where she confessed some of her deepest struggles in order to begin her journey of healing and freedom. She has asked that I share her story with you so that you too can benefit from the insights and the tools and resources and mentoring that I'm going to be sharing with her. So let's just jump into our first conversation together. Well, what's going on, everyone? I hope you're having a fantastic day. I'm super excited for today's episode and our next couple episodes because I am being joined by a very special guest and friend of mine. Her name is Monique. Say what's up, Monique.
What's up? What's up?
To the people out here. Monique just came back from a work trip in El Salvador, and so got to see her living her best life over there.
Trying to, like, literally fresh off the plane.
Fresh off the flight.
Less than 24 hours.
Yes. So I'm excited. I want to share a little bit about how you and I met really quick, just to kind of give some context as to who you are, what brought you here, and where we're going. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So for those of you who may or may not know, I was working at a church about a year ago, and it's a mega church here in our country. And Monique was one of the volunteers that was serving on one of the ministry teams that I had the privilege of overseeing and working with. And I remember it was a Wednesday night, you know, when you and I were where you were out there serving, and it was some downtime, and just came to just start chatting with you and asking questions, I guess, about what's going on in your life. And you really struck me, Monique. Like, I remember just asking you, like, what's God doing in your life? You know, we had, of course, the chit chat conversations, but you, out of all the people that I remember meeting and greeting and connecting with, was like, I just want to grow in my walk with the Lord. Like, there was just such a spiritual maturity about you and insight that you had and a hunger that you had that made me say, hey, you know what? I want to bring you a little closer. Do you remember that?
Yeah. And what stuck out with me was that I think I was telling you I was reading a book. And you asked me what book I was reading. And that really struck me. I was like, wow, okay. A lot of people they ask you how you're doing, and and you know, some people just say, oh, I'm okay. And so I was really telling you how I'm doing, and you know, you asked me that question, and so that made me feel like, you know, that you were asking it, you know, out of, you know, being genuine. And so it really opened me up, and for me, that's what stuck out. And you came off as a person that I could, like, talk to and make me feel comfortable, like, almost instantly from that conversation. So I remember that very well. That's where it all started.
Yeah, it did started there. And 2 years later,
here we are.
We're having this conversation, and you know, you are in a leadership position, a training position at your job. So you're going all over the country, training other organizations and helping them with their systems and their processes and procedures and the customer service world, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Customer service.
We won't say, you know, I'll protect some of your, you know, who you work for and all of that, Jess, because that's neither here nor there. But I know, so you came to me, you had a call, right? And so what kind of started this, as if you followed Monique's story, which I really encourage you to do so, because we're just going to go on a journey together of growth and self-discovery and healing and transformation. So I'm excited to see what God's going to do over this series, the Monique series, the Monique Chronicles. I don't know Monique's story.
Right? I'm still working on it.
If y'all got some ideas out there for what we should call this, let us know. But you recently called me and you basically, do you remember that call?
Yeah, I do. And I was actually nervous about it. It was a challenge from Jen. She told me to reach out, and I was like, no, I don't want to do it. I'm reading, it's a book about dating. And so that's where it all started. I have a desire to be married, and I'm 39 years old, and I'm like, Lord, is it going to happen? And so this book has really caused me to, self-reflect, and it helped me realize that there's some wounds that I have that I want to be able to heal from, or things that I may not have dealt with. Yeah. And so that's what made me want to call, and the book talks about getting your team together and holding you accountable when you go on these dates or whatever. And so I wanted you to be part of the team. Yeah. So if I go on a date, you can help me be accountable. And so that's where it started. And then I basically asked you to be, on the team and say, hey, I'm going to be going through some things. I want to talk to you. And it started just becoming something else. And I said that, hey, I think there's a lot of people out here that are going through what I'm going through, especially being single. Yeah. And so, and I know you do a lot of podcasts and share articles. And I thought that it would be good, for us to collaborate on that level as far as reaching out to other people. Yes. Because I am frustrated by just feeling like I'm the only one that feels that way. And the lack of resources that I have, or even the saturation of material that you hear out there, can be very overwhelming. Yeah. And so I just want to share my story with other people and just create a different type of conversation.
Yes. Well, I'm excited. I'm honored that you thought of me and invited me into your story, into your struggle. And so that's what I want to get to. So people are probably wondering, okay, what is Monique's story? What's going on with this 39-year-old woman? Because you have some goals, right? We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. Yeah. But you have some goals. Before I'm 40, I want to start moving in this direction. Mm-hmm. So before we jump into that, though, how would you finish this statement, Monique? That I have struggled with blank for the past either all my life or the past how many years. So what is the struggle? What is the battle that brought you to me today?
I think I would say I have struggled with identity. And I would probably say since 2012. Yeah. That's when I just kind of decided to really get serious. I was always a Christian, but I guess I rededicated my life, so to speak.
Okay. In 2012.
Okay. Yeah. And so I just kind of woke up and be like, who am I? What do I like to eat? What are my favorites? Like all these things started coming up. Like somebody was asked, like, what's your hobby? I'm like, oh my God, I don't even have one. So I would say that I struggle with, identity, and that in turn births other struggles. Like when you go out on dates, you allow guys to treat you a certain way because you don't know who you are. Yeah. Or, not having a schedule or any type of goals. You just live. You just wake up and you just go. Yeah. No type of structure, financial goals, career goals, friendships, relationships. If you don't know who you are, you allow anybody to say or do anything, treat you a certain way. You put up with certain things from your friends or your family members. Yeah. And you struggle just being comfortable in your own skin. Yeah. And so I realized along the way somewhere, I just woke up and realized that I had lost myself. And so it's a journey to try to get back to that. Yeah. To say, who am I?
So would you say that this struggle with really not knowing who you are, your identity, how has that shown up in other areas of your life? I mean, so I know you said in 2012, you kind of rededicated your life to God and started getting flooded with these questions and all of that. But how has that impacted other issues in your life? And how's that really made you feel? Let me just ask that question. How has this, I don't know who I am, where I'm going, what I'm working toward, right? How has that made you feel?
Just exhausted, really, because I got tired of just waking up being upset and not knowing who I am. I think a goal of mine is I want to have joy. I want to wake up and be happy in my own skin and be proud of who God made me and not hate all the things that I don't like about myself and flaws and
like
what do I not like about myself? It's a lot. I think I overthink and I overprocess a lot, and I hate that.
Okay.
Sometimes I just want to be free and be in the moment, but I have to like calculate everything, and it's exhausting. I wear myself out before you even execute and do anything. Yeah. It's annoying.
Mm-hmm. What do you think? Why do you think you overthink so much? What is behind that? Is there a fear?
Ultimately, I think it's just my lack of trust in God, to be honest. And I think it's, I've been independent pretty much all my life. Everything that I have, I pretty much done myself. Yeah. And I've been a single person. Yeah. And I haven't had to ask for a whole lot of help. Yeah. And so I've learned how to trust myself. Just me, basically. And so over processing and overthinking is a lot how I got there. Yeah. I'm going to calculate step A, B, C, and D, and then I'm going to move, and then this happens. Yeah. Then I move on to the next thing. I calculated everything, and that's how it is. I never learned how to live into the moment or make a decision. I've always, to ensure that I am okay, I'm going to calculate all these steps.
Wow. Do you feel like, so I think you said trust in God, right? Because a lot of times, would you agree that has to do with me wanting to feel in control of certain things? And so I overthink, I overprocess.
Yeah, because you're in control. Yeah, for sure.
I want to, and are we in control?
No, we're not. We're not in control. But I guess that's something that I've been working on. I think my struggle with God is the trust, because it's literally like walking on a plank and just jumping off, not really knowing what's going to happen. That's what it's like. And I've never had to really do that in everything that I have in my life. Like when it comes to buying a car, when I bought my house, when my military career and work career, I've been calculated in everything that I did before I made a decision. Sure. And so now, when life hits you, we're just going to require some faith and some trust. I've never had to do that. And so it's been a real struggle.
Yeah. So I know you said earlier in the podcast that you're 39, you want to get married.
That's where it all starts, right?
That was the catalyst, right? Like, catalyst. God, what is happening here?
If I'm going to get married, I need to get myself together. And that's where it starts.
Yes. So would you say that in this season of your life that you feel stuck from moving forward and living the life that you believe God wants for you?
In this day and moment, I don't feel as stuck. Okay. I feel like I'm making some steps.
Okay. Like what? What steps are you taking?
Like this is a step. Yeah. This is a brand new arena for me as far as like pouring out who I am as a person and really talking about inner feelings. Those are things that I've always kept to myself. Yeah. And so this makes me feel like there's movement happening. Yeah. Whereas before that, maybe even about 2 months ago, I did feel stuck. Yeah. It was wake up, I do the same thing. Wake up, go home, go to work, go home. And I felt like my life is work. And I don't feel like, I know that there's more. Yeah. There's more. I'm a very work driven person. My work ethic is kind of like through the roof, but that's really my life. Like my conversations is about work. My friendships is like, whoa, what's new? What's happening at work? And I'm like, there's more to life. Yeah. And so I was feeling very stuck because it was just always to and from homework. And then I hang out with a friend or two every now and then. Yeah. That was it.
So a couple months ago, you were feeling that way. Yeah. And so what actions have you started to take so that you feel like, okay, I don't feel stuck or paralyzed, but I'm starting to move and make some progress in where I want to go? What did you do that's making you feel like now you're moving in a positive direction?
Well, the first thing was, and I really have to credit, my friendship with Jen, kind of like how we developed as well. Jen was a person that I met at church, and we started working together in the ministry, and there was kind of something there with us. Yeah. And so it really budded from that. And then she suggested the book about dating. That's where it started. And so
were you sharing with her some of your dating challenges, and that's why she recommended the book?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So I was talking about dating, the challenges, and I felt like I was like, oh, okay, I'm ready to date, because again, I felt stuck, right? So I'm like, mate, I just need to get myself out there. Let's go dating. Let's go do this. I feel like I'm ready. Yeah. I wasn't as stressful, feeling as stressful at work. I felt like I was getting some type of routine going where I could add something else to my life. Yeah. like a dating relationship. And so, and I talked to her about the struggles, and so she recommended, the book. But that book started opening up some real questions, and she asked me some real questions, and I was like, okay, I need to deal with this. And so
what were some of those questions? Because I do know that as a result of you reading that, that's how I kind of, that the call came to me to kind of get connected to you. And so I would love to know, what was it that book was asking you, or that Jen was even asking you, that made you take a step back and say, okay, I'm not really ready for dating because I recognize there's some other things going on inside of me.
Yeah.
Do you have an idea of some of those questions?
Yeah. Because it's just about, first, my I guess my excuse was what everybody else says. There were no men out here. There are no godly men out here or where I live. And so then it started to say, okay, well, why? What are you going to do about that?
Okay.
Are you going to move, or what about your routine is keeping you from getting out there? Because really, you can't meet anybody if you just go to work and go home.
This is
right?
true.
So it's kind of like, why are you just going to work and going home?
Yeah.
What is it that makes you not do anything else?
Yeah.
Why do you not have any hobbies?
Yeah.
And I was like, holy crap, like, why do I not have any?
Now, and as a result of those questions,
Yeah.
what would you respond to with those? Like, what would you say now?
I would just say, you know what? That's a good question. Like, I need to have an answer for that. And the fact that I don't lets me know that there's something deeper than it not just being any men out here.
Yeah.
That's not the problem. It's the fact that you're going to and from home every day, and you're not getting yourself out there, or you're going to the wrong places. And so it made me, why everything has to be, you have to ask why more often.
Yeah, that's good.
And that's what I wasn't doing. And so now I was like, okay, I need to address some of these reasons why I'm doing that.
Yeah.
And then she also asked me, about my patterns with men, as far as why do you think your relationships are going the way that they're going, where they're not being successful, or why do you think you're upset about this, or why do you keep creating the same patterns of same type of men that you're dating? Like, why do you think that is?
Sure.
And then she asked me about my past with men and some of the things.
There's a lot of loaded questions.
Yeah, that I'm not proud of. And so I was like, ooh, nobody's ever asked me that, because I haven't had any accountability. Nobody's ever asked me that.
Yeah. Wow. That's good. So I do want to ask you what, to kind of expand on what you just mentioned about the type of patterns of men. So who are these men that you have that you have been connecting to, and what are these patterns that it sounds like now I'm getting the impression that they may be unhealthy patterns or unhealthy relationships? I want to hear a little bit more about the selection of men that you have been connecting to, and what you've discovered about what you no longer want in a husband.
So some of them are, I would always meet men that would have like a spiritual life, right?
Okay.
Or they say they would. Like, I believe in God, I go to church, or they were like spiritually ambitious, so to speak. And so because I was too, I was like, yay, this is it, but it turns out that they weren't, that way, just by, the lives that we're living. Like, there was no prayer life, when they would always say, oh, I want to read the Bible with you and stuff like that, and that would like reel me in, and I would just make decisions too quickly, because that was like the hook, right, that would get me in. And so now we're going out, we're probably hanging out with each other, you coming over my house when they probably shouldn't be, and so then you would sleep with them like way too early, and then your feelings and your emotions get all involved, and then you realize now you want to change, like, no, we can't have sex before marriage, and you done already crossed that boundary. And so with men, it'll always start out as this innocent thing and a conversation about God and wanting to be, have, like I said, you're spiritually ambitious. Yeah. And then we would start dating, and then we would cross the line too early, and then it turns out to be not a relationship.
Absolutely. So being that you were drawn to this perception that they were more spiritual than they were, right? And then as you were in this relationship with them and you began to see these boundaries being crossed, now we're moving into sexual intimacy. At what point did you maybe say, okay, wait a minute, this is not God's design? And I guess my question is this: what stopped you from saying, wait a minute, like this is not how a godly, according to God's word, man should be. What caused you to compromise that boundary and step over that and to be in a relationship with someone who was not your husband, a sexual relationship?
I think it's just not being aware or not having any discipline for sure. And then just not being aware of your worth. Is sometimes you do things to like keep people around.
Yeah.
Like I would always adjust my schedule to like men, and so they would be like, hey, you want to go out? And then I would like drop everything, or I'll move everything around to make it happen. For if I say no, to make it seem like I don't like you. Yeah. You know, you wanted to be needed, and I think I was attracted to people who wanted to be needed as well.
Yeah.
And good. So, and it was always, you know, the people that I attracted, like it was like I get smitten really. Yeah. So it's like I would always get like manager types or leadership roles, and that was always attractive to me. So I couldn't see past what I wanted. Yeah. Because you were cute, you're, you know,
successful,
in a leadership role, you're successful, you seem to have, you know, all your things together, no drama, and so all of that was attractive to me, and it was very hard. Yeah. Those are like, if your work ethic is like mine, you know, that's kind of like a top thing if you can have a conversation. So I got sucked into all those things, and not looking at character and not looking at what you do and not what you say. Yeah, absolutely. So I had a hard time doing that.
So once you stepped over that line, you were sexually intimate with this man. How did that change your relationship with these men?
I knew it was something that I didn't want to do long term. Yeah. You know, it was something that is, you get caught up in the moment and it happens and you're not thinking straight. And then after a while, you know, when it does be a relationship, you're like, you're going to have to keep this up. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, and I'm like, ultimately deep down inside, that's not the person who I wanted to be. Right. And who I have trouble letting the person that's inside, letting that out. Yeah. And that's another thing I need to work on is who I am and what I believe. I need to act out and not be afraid of being that person. Yeah. And so, deep down, I knew that's not what I wanted from a long-term perspective. And I was like, man, so I can't do this long-term. And they were like, well, how you just going to tell me, you know, that we can't have sex anymore and we just already had sex? And I'm like, I know, but this is what I want. And I've told a few people that, probably like one or two. I'm not a serial date or anything. So the one or two people I can remember pretty vividly, you know, they kind of struggled with that and was looking at me like sideways. Yeah.
There's a lot of research that says women give sex to get love. Right. And so what have you discovered? So I want to know kind of like, how did these relationships break up then? So, you know, you're hooked, you know, you're connecting, there's some boundaries that have been crossed. And so now you put your foot down and say, okay, I really don't want to keep doing this. So then what happens with these relationships? Why have they ended?
Well, most of them were definitely not, I don't know the word to use, but they were not godly. I would say that. And so
did you end the relationships?
Yeah.
Okay.
For the most part, I did. And maybe not like how I should have, but they're just relationships I'm not very proud of. And so, Lord. Okay.
It's okay. It's okay. Hey, listen.
So, I've had a run-in like with the adulterous spirit. And the way one of them, you know, happened is a person, he told me that he was divorced, but he really wasn't divorced. Okay. He was like living here. Okay. And then, you know, I guess the wife was in another state, and I guess they were like separated or something. Okay. But he told me that they were divorced. And so I looked it up in the Bible, and it was basically like, if you're not divorced, you married, basically. And so that was way after the fact that we had already crossed the boundary, and I started liking you and stuff like that.
Getting emotionally attached.
Yeah, you got attached. And so it was very hard to let go of that. But I am the one that ultimately ended that relationship. And I'm the one, I was like, you know, you need to go do what you need to do. And he was like, you're one of the strongest people I've ever met. I don't know if I could ever do that. And I'm like, okay, but that's just the right thing to do. Like my spirit wouldn't live with that. Yeah. And so I just kept running across people that were like married. And I was just like, why me? Like, why?
Did you know at first, or did they kind of lure you in? You got connected, emotionally attached, maybe got intimate, and then you discover that these were married men?
One of them, he told me he was divorced. Another one, he was not. He got married like after the fact. Oh, so we were kind of, I guess we were kind of messing around, so to speak. And he got married after the fact. And so like
while you were still together, connecting?
Yeah, basically. And so it was kind of like a casual, relationship, but we had history all the way. We had history for a lot of years, like 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 plus years, like friendship history. Yes, but we crossed the boundary every now and then. Yeah. And so years later, he upped and got married. Yeah. And I was like, didn't know how to feel about that. I was like, how you do that? Yeah. And then, but it continued from there because we got all these years. And so it would always feel like, he would always tell me stuff like, I really feel like we're soulmates. And, I wish our time didn't line up, so we weren't able to get married and stuff like that, or have a real relationship. Basically saying that the stars didn't align for us was the kind of the story. And over time, I felt like it came to me. I was like, no, I think that's manipulation. Like, I really feel like what he was saying was manipulation. Yeah. Ultimately, I don't know if he intended to do that, but that's what it was. Yeah. By telling me those things, because I believed it too. Yeah. And I was like, if we could just get our careers together and we were in the same state at the same time, then this would have happened and we would have been together. Sure. But I was like, so why did you get married then? Right. So it didn't start out me knowing that. Sure. But then once you were in, you're like, once you were in, you're in. Yeah. So what did it take for you to finally say, you know what, no more will I allow myself to get into these types of relationships, to compromise my value, right? To give every part of me, which should be just for my husband. What was that for you? Like what was going on in your mind? What did you start believing about yourself? Well, I don't think it was really that. I don't think that took me, what made me make that decision. I think it was the amount of condemnation that I had on myself. I just felt so bad. I felt like a terrible person. And I felt like, I wasn't worthy of forgiveness. And I just felt really, 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 really bad. Yeah. And one of the decisions, I cut it off. I'm still kind of suffering from the consequences from that, because one of the people said that, they can't go to church because I go to that same church. And that really hurt me, that I could call somebody to not go to church. Yeah. Because we were in the same city. And so I felt that I was keeping somebody from coming to church. Wow. And so I just beat myself up a lot over that. And I don't want to feel that anymore. Yeah. So are you still struggling with those feelings, or do you feel like you finally were able to get out of that self-condemnation? Where are you at with that today? Yeah, I've forgiven myself. And I just pray that, God finds a way to speak to that person still. And they do find a way, or that they did find a church to go to, or that God has spoken to them in that way. I just have to trust that, God still has a way of working in people. And so, that's right. But every now and then, I would go to church and be like, what would I do if I ran into that person, or if they, decided to come? Like sometimes I would be fearful that, it would collide. But I believe, that God wouldn't put me in that situation if he knew I couldn't, handle it. So I had to have trust and faith that wouldn't happen at church. And so I think I'm in a better place, but that really kind of hurt my feelings when I heard that person would not go to church because I go there. And that really that tore me down. Yeah. And so, I'm stronger now. And even now, the last person that I dated, I was like, "Are you married?" Let's get that out. No, here's my divorce paper right here. Okay. Like he pulled it up on his phone and everything, and I was like, I can't even do it. And I don't even like to listen to songs that have anything to do with it. That Shirley Murdoch song or whatever. And I was like, I always wonder if that is a way that these things kind of manifest in my life. Because they used to be one of my favorite songs.
What song?
The As We Lay song by
I have no idea.
That's a song about adultery.
I have no idea.
When I was a kid, I didn't know what I was singing, but I just liked the musicality of it, and I would just blow that song all the time.
Wow.
And I was just like, is this why this is happening to me? Because I love this song. Like, I would just think all kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I don't listen, to songs. I try not to listen to songs that have anything to do with that.
Yeah. That's good. Because as a man thinketh, so is he, whatever we put in, we can act on. And that's powerful, and there are spirits. I ain't gonna get into that, but there are spirits attached to all kind of things.
It was just, the adulterous spirit has been after me for sure. I would always meet men that were like married or whatever.
How has that affected the way you see yourself, the way you think about yourself, and the way you feel about yourself?
Well, now, I guess I didn't know my worth at that point. And that's kind of why I say I struggle with identity, because, I didn't know that I deserve better, you think you do, but you're still committing small acts that clearly show that you don't appreciate yourself. And so I would say I just didn't know. Yeah. I was just doing what was in front of me at the time. Yeah. But now that I'm growing, now I think that's the whole why I used to get upset about, not having a relationship with my father that I feel like I should have, is because nobody taught me that I shouldn't put myself in those positions, and I should expect certain things, from men. And I would get upset because I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how a man is supposed to treat a woman because I never saw it. And so now I'm having to learn how a man should treat, and I'm only learning because experience. Yeah. And I wish I would have just been able to grow up already knowing. Yeah. And I could not put up with certain things. So it's upsetting.
What need do you think these men were feeling in your life that you thought that caused you to be in these relationships? What was going on inside of you? What need were you hoping they could fill for you?
I think I felt, I wrote that down once on my journals. I think I felt needed, and they had qualities that I wish I had. So I think that was big for me. I admired people that have qualities that I feel like I don't have.
Yeah. Do you have an example of some of those?
Like people who are very, that can make like decisions on the spot and very assertive and know what they want right off top. Like that's attractive to me. And usually, like I said, I would meet men who are in very good leadership positions, and they have to do that. And so, but you have to believe that about yourself. And I didn't believe that about myself, because I'm always overprocessing, overthinking, right? Yeah. And I struggled with decision making. And so if I saw a man that could do that very well, that was admirable to me. Yeah. Yeah. And so those are some of the things that, got me attracted to them. And what was the other question? What was the question?
Just overall, what need were these men satisfying in you?
So it was that, because I felt like if I couldn't make my decision, he would be able to do it. Like there was a manly quality for me, or someone who could, I feel like, he could run a household because he can make decisions and things like that. And I felt like if he had, I feel like I was always some type of like a healer. Like one of my gifts is exhortation, right? And so if he was somebody that may be feeling down or out, the fact that I could like talk to you and maybe come from a place of understanding, because people always say that I could do that. Yeah. Like that's something that they liked about me, is that I didn't come from judgmental. Like if you're weird, I'm weird too. Yeah. And identify with you. And so I always use that as a strength of mine. I would say that I have the ability to identify with people's weaknesses. Yeah. Because I'm always self-condemning myself for my weaknesses. And so I feel like because I have these same weaknesses, I understand you, I get you. And so because they felt that way, it made me feel powerful.
Powerful. Okay. So there's a need to feel powerful, maybe. Would you say that there was a need to feel loved or to feel special? I'm just asking, not saying that you said anything that made me think that, but just wanted to.
I think that did make me feel loved and feel special.
Felt needed.
Yeah. The feeling needed is what made me feel like you really cared, you know, because you can pick up the phone and call me like that, not knowing that you were probably doing it because you were bored or you didn't have anything to do.
Sure.
But I wasn't able to see, you know, past the smoke to see what it really was. But at the moment I made it up in my head. I was like, oh, he cares because he's calling in and talk to me. But you only calling me and talk to me at your convenience. It didn't go two ways.
Sure.
And so, you know, there's a friendship that I'm supposed to not be having, but I have a hard time cutting it off. And
right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Why is that?
Because it started out that way. It was a guy I was supposed to date. He's the one, and he kind of flaked on me. Like, he just kind of just didn't want to date anymore. I was like, what?
So you were dating. How long were you dating?
It was we went out for like 2 months, and it was like a real connection.
Okay.
And he didn't have no drama. He wasn't attached. He had everything together. He had time.
Christian man?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I felt like, okay, this is it. And I was like, they do exist. And you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then he just kind of started disappearing all of a sudden.
Just kind of ghosted you?
Yeah, he kind of ghosted a little bit, and he was never available. Like, I couldn't call. Like, I know he has iPhone, and so every time I called, it would go straight to voicemail every single time. And I'd be like, what is it? And I was like, oh, he's just weird. He's just aloof. And I would make those type of excuses or whatnot. And then eventually I just figured out that we weren't going to be, or, you know, I just figured it out. It ain't like we had a whole conversation to say that he didn't want to be, you know, he wasn't ready for a relationship. He just started, it just never turned into anything. And so eventually over time, I got over it. And so now I was like, oh, we could just be friends. You know, we're at a space now where we could be friends.
Yeah.
But it's still, to this day, if I try to call, it goes to voicemail. And so now I know why.
Yeah.
Because we had a conversation, and it just turns out that, you know, he got divorced, but she divorced him, and he wasn't ready for divorce. So he was still wanting to be a part of a family.
Okay.
And so eventually they like reconnected and stuff like that. And so he started trying to build his family and get his family back together.
Okay.
And that's where it was.
Okay.
And so
where's it at now?
Yeah, they're
rekindled or whatever.
Yeah, they're rekindled. Got it, you know,
reconciled.
Yeah, reconciled. I don't know if they're married. I don't think they're married, but they're currently in a relationship.
Okay.
And so because we're on good terms and everything, but it's hard for me to cut it. Now I feel like I can't cut it off because it feels mean, you know.
So what do you, if he's reconciled, if he's back together with her, what is there to cut off?
The friendship, because it's not a real friendship.
Do you see him often?
No, he's in a different state.
Okay.
Like we can be good friends. We could,
Okay.
you know, there's no bad blood between us or anything like that. We get along great. We make each other laugh. Like it could be, and I thought that's what it would be, but a friendship goes two ways. If you can pick up the phone and call me, I should be able to pick up the phone and call you. So I think because it started out dating, and, you know, she probably wouldn't approve of us being friends because she knows nothing about me.
I was just going to ask that question. Why do you feel like you still need to keep this man who's already got his woman, right? Or he's working toward really moving in a different direction as a friend? Why is it hard for you to cut that off?
And it's not really I can't say it's really an attachment to him. I think I have a struggle with because like it feels mean. Like Jen wanted me to like block him on Facebook.
Were you guys intimate?
In the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah, which, you know, it's probably where we messed up. But I did good. I was trying not to be, and then I gave in because I told him that I wasn't trying to do that. And so I was like, yay, Monique, you know, when I didn't, you know what I'm saying? I had a conversation about it first, and I let him know what the expectations were up front.
But he violated it too.
Yeah, I mean, we gave in. And so it wasn't, but we could always meet up and it not lead to that. So that's what made me feel like it was like a friendship, because if it wasn't about sex, then we could be friends.
Yeah.
So that's weird logic. But,
I
mean, it feels mean to cut, you know, I feel like we have to have a conversation and we have to talk about it.
Why?
And say, I don't know. Like, I just can't. I've never been to one to just block people. And like, I've always cared.
Do you text him? Does he try calling you?
Yeah. Like, he'll call. And we don't talk very often. It'll be every couple months or so. Like, I can count on my hand how many times a year.
Yeah.
Right. But, you know, when I think we're in a good space and I was like, okay, I'm over it. You know, I no longer got blinders on and I'm all this smitten girl. You know, I'm over you now. And I was like, we can be friends. and I cannot answer my phone and feel some kind of way. Like I used to answer every time he called, every single time, because I was like, oh, I can't call him back. So if I don't answer, it's going to be 5 months before I talk to him.
Right.
So I would always pick up the phone. And now I'm like, I'm not going to do that anymore.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. And I want to just say that it's okay to just let it be done. Like there's no need, right? Like, I guess I'm trying to understand why you feel like you have to have this closure conversation, why you feel like you still need to be available when he calls, or that you can still, like, what is going on inside of you that's still feeling like I need him as a friend, or I would like to have him as a friend? Like, why are you still in that space?
Well, I think I know that now. Like, I'm okay with not being a friendship because I realize that it's not going to be a real friendship. We're not going to be able to continue to talk because you can't openly have a friendship around your family. You know what I'm saying? Like, she probably wouldn't approve because, again, she doesn't know anything about me.
Sure.
And they have history. So I realized, I was like, okay, Monique, this is never going to be a real friendship. It's non-value added at all.
Yeah.
Like, he gets more from me than I would get from him.
Sure.
And so I'm okay with that, but I've never been in a position to where I've had to block people or, you know, like
it's new for you.
Yeah, it's new. I've been able to have a mutual cutoff with every person that I've ever had to let go.
Yeah.
So like when I broke up with my boyfriend, it was mutual. We had a conversation. We have an understanding. I never just cut anybody off. So I have a hard time struggling with, you know, just cutting somebody off. It feels mean, you know, because if somebody did that to me, I would feel some kind of way. And I guess that's where it comes from. Yeah. Because somebody did just cut me off and it didn't feel good. Okay. And so I feel like I owe you this conversation or something.
Do you feel like you can have that conversation with him and just say, hey, here's where I'm at in my life. Here's why I want to end this and be done, whether he agrees or disagrees or whatever? Do you feel like that's something you can send in an email and a text message?
I could probably text it. But that just seems so... I just feel like I should be a person, you know, I used to tell myself all the time, I was like, Monique, you're 39 years old. You need to be a woman and just say this front to face and be an adult. Like, I always felt like text messaging is so passive. And so to me, it's like confronting a fear by being able to say something and being honest in somebody's face. Like there's something rewarding about that.
I definitely think one of the things I want to talk to you about in future episodes, not so much today, but is boundaries and what is getting in the way of you establishing some boundaries when it comes to intimacy, when it comes to boundaries with people that maybe this whole friendship dynamic where we used to be intimate, but now we're friends and you've kind of moved on, but we're still having this relationship. So I want to explore that a little bit more with you. And into some of the reasonings why, you know, because there's usually some emotional need that person is feeling in us. And until we can identify what need we have that we're longing for in other people, right, that can be unhealthy. Because the reality is, let's say that was you, the other woman, and you find out that this man that you are with and you're trying to have a future with is still connecting with another woman that he was intimate with. Because we understand that there's a spiritual connection that happens, right? When we're physically intimate, when we become one with someone. And so there is a soul tie that has been made that now needs to be severed spiritually, right? And so that's a whole nother conversation. But I think that might be at play here.
Oh, I'm pretty sure. And it's very hard. That's why it takes so long to try to get over, you know, a person, is because of that connection. And things like that. So it's very tough. But again, I just tie it back to identity, because if you know who you are, then you would already know out the gate what you're going to do and not do. And say what you need to say when it's time to say it. Not saying it's going to be easy, but I wouldn't have allowed that to happen if I was more comfortable in myself and knowing, you know, who I am. And so that's really what the journey is about, is just to try to know more, you know yourself and know who God created you to be and how he wants us to be. And we are godly creatures and we can say no, and you have to build that discipline up in order to say, no. And actually that's more attractive than saying yes.
So if I were to ask you, who is Monique today? What is your sense of identity and how would you define your identity? What would you say?
I would say I'm still figuring that out.
Okay.
I think it's just a never ending journey, but, I am stronger today than I was even 2 months ago. who is Monique? Like I have to put a word on it.
What's your identity? If someone said, how, because you're saying that this has been my struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And then there sounds like there's also been a struggle. You haven't said this specifically, so correct me if I'm wrong, but a struggle and a battle with knowing your value and your worth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
True?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So today, with the awareness that you may have today, maybe you don't have it all figured out, which is what you just said, and that's okay. But what would you say now if this is who I am, right? This is the awareness today of my identity, and this is my awareness today of my value. How would you answer those?
Man, that's a feeling, right? Because I'm struggling, like putting into words.
Okay, that's okay.
I don't know if that's really going to answer the question. I would just say I guess these are things that I didn't believe about myself that I think that I am today.
Mm-hmm.
I know I am a strong person. I didn't think so. That I'm not weird. Mm-hmm. Like I would think that I know I'm weird. And so I would use that to identify with people. But, I'm just made, by Christ. These are things that God wanted me to have, and they're special. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm special. I am loved by God.
Yes. You're a child of God.
Yeah. And so I always, like I said, condemn myself all the time. Because I'm not the decisions that I made.
Yes.
I'm not that person.
That's right.
I'm just a person who's made bad decisions.
Yeah.
But I'm not that person.
That's right.
Yeah. So,
all sin and fall short of the glory of God. And the word of God says there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ. So the enemy would like to try to remind us of what you did wrong and condemn us. But we know that when you're in Christ, he said the old things are gone and all things are made new in him. And so that's the hope. Thank you so much for joining me for today's episode. I hope it's been useful for you and your journey. My prayer is that you too will remember that you are not what you did. You are not defined by your past actions. 1 John 1:9 says that when we confess our sins, God is faithful and just to forgive us of our sins and cleanse us from all unrighteousness, meaning all of our wrong living and wrongdoing. And Hebrews 8:12 also reminds us that God will forgive our wickedness and will never again remember our sins. Now, y'all, I don't know about you, but that's good news. So that's all for today's episode. And if this podcast encouraged you, I'd like to take a minute to ask you to subscribe so that you can be a part of our growing community of thrivers who are trying to live out their faith in practical ways. And I always love to hear from you. So please write us a review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, because this really does help with the visibility of the podcast. And it lets me know what you think, what you're enjoying, and where we can go with the podcast in the future. So be sure to connect with me on Instagram or on my Facebook page, Thrive with Purpose, so we can continue this conversation. I really would love to hear from you. Be sure to listen in next Friday for part 2 of Monique's story. You are not going to want to miss that. So until next time, talk to you soon. Peace.